Greetings and well met. I trust this video finds you hail. First, I must commend you on your choice of viewing this morrow, and I'm most gratified for your click. For my name is Rick. Welcome to a concise coverage of this courtly cruiser conveyed clearly to you, the Hysperian Royal Navy's Monaveen class vessel. This is the first non-Starfleet vessel I have covered, yet still a human world's creation. The planet of Hysperia was settled by human colonists who wished to build a society based around a romanticised medieval fantasy of courts, magic and adventure, without sacrificing the comforts of modern living. Frankly, I see the appeal. Well, for a week or two. They are not exactly a part of the Federation, a reminder that not every human colony has to be part of the UFP. Nevertheless, they retain good diplomatic relations with the Federation at least. At the core of their culture is a desire to clad the works of scientific advancement in the mythos of magic, which at first might belie their technological understanding. However, this would be a mistake to assume that they were not as advanced as other spacefaring cultures simply because they referred to a warp core as a dragon flame engine. This has led to a strong design choice when it comes to creating ships, with a focus on floral and elegant patterns engraved into their technology and ships, making for a striking image, even if they went for Planet Express green. The design was created for Star Trek Lower Decks as the only ship seen of the Hysperian people. We got to see much of its internal structure too, and that same ostentatiousness is reflected within as without. A new model was created for Star Trek Online by Mauricio Tejerina, which featured more detailing in the filigree and additional points for ship systems. An ornate door knocker was used as reference material to add the gold leaf patterning. The Hysperian RNS Monaveen was the flagship of the class, and by Starfleet classifications would fit into the intelligence-focused cruiser category. It was created as not only the premier defending ship of their homeworld, but also a representation of their culture for diplomatic endeavours. As such, it even carried with it creatures from Hysperia, including horses and dragons. Internally, it featured many designs and technologies considered outdated and possibly wasteful, but it cannot be denied that they form a definite aesthetic. There were cavernous rooms featuring staircases and flame-based chandeliers, when lifts were more efficient. Saying this, there were turbo lifts. Modern technology was not shunned, just selectively employed. Many doors were manual, and the warp core itself was ornately shrouded with the maw of a dragon, with arch-like alcoves carrying computer displays stylized to resemble stained glass. It was 8 decks tall, however the lowest appears to be just a turbolift shaft and machinery, so 7 inhabited decks. These decks, however, were very tall, looking to be around 7 metres, which would give it a total size of approximately 56 metres. The twin tails at the back are mostly empty space purely for design purposes. So, with the deck estimates coupled with some comparison shots of a California class, I have a best guess at its scale. It was roughly 510 metres long, unsurprising considering its elongated look, 81 metres high at the tallest points, with 56.7 metres at the mid. This makes it about 239 metres wide. However, these are estimates based on scale, and if another source lists it as only 100 metres long or something, then that's what it is. In terms of abilities and statistics, we really only have the Star Trek Online version to compare it with other ships, so I could rattle off some numbers, but I think comparisons would paint a better picture, and would be more lore accurate without gameplay-specific details. The hull is constructed with an alloy referred to as orichalcum, but is on par with the hull strength of a Galaxy or Ross-class starship, but not as durable as the Odyssey class. The same is true for the shield integrity, the protective rune weave, which eclipses a Galaxy class but is shadowed in turn by the Odyssey. However, the Monaveen-type featured a recurring scale pattern over most of the hull, each segmented plate crafted to resemble dragon scales. It was imbued with draconic vigour, some sort of ambient field for structural integrity. Its energies were powered with a dragon's breath furnace, which was simply a stylised matter-antimatter warp core. It was capable of a good degree of manoeuvrability for its classification, with turning circles at impulse equivalent to an older Starfleet exploration cruiser like the Walker, but not as nimble as the later Intrepid. However, it was pretty fast at impulse, with good acceleration and haulage being speedier than the Intrepid. The subspace field matrix was referred to as the Elf Matrix. Honestly, this makes me wonder if they have a whole mythology of subspace being some elven realm or something. At warp, its engines were apparently comparable to Starfleet's averages, but we don't have exact details. But don't worry, there is far more to cover on its reactor later in this video. Its sensor systems were known as the scrying systems, and allowed for in-combat assessment sweeps of a threat tying into the targeting systems, giving it that intel-gathering edge, which earned it the classification from Starfleet. In addition to this, it could weave a potent spell of invisibility around itself to shroud its passing. Some sort of invisibility cloak. As a non-Federation world, this did not violate any treaties with the Romulans. In terms of armaments, it was equipped with disruptor cannons, known as the Rays of Disintegration, in the front of the ship, and 2 rear-facing batteries on the tail strut. It had 6 torpedo launchers, 4 placed along the wings facing forward, and 2 rear-facing. However, it also contained a unique ability, the Dragon's Blood Flame, powered by the reactor itself. Essentially, it channels the ether, warp plasma, of the engines into a forward emitter, then breathes out this volatile mixture, which then detonates in radiant flame, spraying forth a torrent of terrible and consuming fire. Basically, it weaponizes its warp plasma to overwhelm foes. This can be pretty effective at not only melting unprotected enemies, but also messing with their systems, although it does obviously sacrifice warp efficiency considering you're dumping the reactant into space. It was also equipped with the 5 Magics system. This is a fancy way of saying that it was tuned to emit various other damage types, from various particle radiations to disruptors, and that they could be seamlessly incorporated into its armaments, meaning that it was pretty variable. It had 4 rear-facing shuttle bay exits, which were rather small, suggesting it could not launch runabouts or things of similar scale. Despite all the naming conventions, much of the technology at play within the ship is based on Federation Starfleet designs, which is evident in the UFP standard glows seen from the nacelles. This makes sense as the Hysperian colony likely spun out of Earth and maybe even had initial aid in setting up. We have seen that the Federation is perfectly willing to help set up people beyond its own purview and then step back and let them develop. As for the design of the vessel itself, I honestly love the simplicity. It really is quite a basic shape, resembling old sci-fi rockets but decked out in all this ornate gold leaf and elegant motifs. Clearly it is a vessel where during construction thought was given more to its form than its function, as much Hysperian culture is, but that does not mean that the form overshadows the function here. It is in fact a perfectly capable vessel, and a rather powerful ship, with its cloak, stylized homage to a creature, and devastating plasma weapon. It reminds me of the old Romulan birds of prey, and seems to follow a similar philosophy, albeit without the glass cannon aspect. In conclusion, thou shalt find this vessel most satisfactory for embarking upon any voyage of the stellar seas, be it diplomatic, courier, or in defence of the realm. One would be remiss, too, not to observe its potential in the fields of espionage, and should a Monaveen bring its fearsome dragon's blood gauntleted fist to bear, thou'st would be wise to quit the field or feel its fiery strike. I graciously thank you for your viewership, for I have been Rick, and I shall see thy again soon. Prithee until then take care and farewell. Away!